Episode 5, One Claw, Two Claw. One claw, two claw, throne of a hermit. Look beneath a stone, you'll be better for it. There's an old town near where I used to live called Remembrance. When I asked about their local legends, Masterpiece gave a slight chuckle and answered, "Have you ever heard of the Hermit Emperor?" To which I shook my head, Emma looking at me with those shining, perfect rainbow eyes that began to tell the tale of a simple hermit crab. As all great legends go, we begin with the crab. The hermit was minding its own business at the bottom of the transparent waves. It loved to gather especially shiny shells and stones to adorn its home. It ate but no more than any other crab. Overall, it was fairly normal, all things considered. It scuttled, shut its shell, and found a new one, and as the weeks went by, it was satisfied with its place, drifting and dancing on the ocean floor. As the little thing stumbled along, it found bigger and bigger homes, even once carved out a large spiral shell for itself. One day, though, an ocean world faded from existence, and with it, the ocean's crown was dropped into the Wonderland. When it sank to the depths of the East Sea, the creatures of the abyss began to churn about and converge on its location. Eels that could spit blue acid, sharks made of glass, colossal steel lobsters all began to clobber one another for the crown. But it was not a shark that obtained the crown, nor a lobster. For while every large creature was fighting, a simple hermit crab drifted deep into the abyss. But the pressure threatened to crack such a feeble creature, it found itself stuck within the bounds of a great circle. As the hermit crab began to ponder its predicament, the golden barrier holding the poor crab in began to close. With this, and the pressure, the crab simply huddled into its shell, knowing its own demise was near. When it finally dared to peek its head from its shell, it found itself looking up at the surface, a new set of eyes. It seemed just as it shed its home, it too shed its body, and with itself reborn into the grand form of a 10-foot-tall crab with a diamond shell, no less. As it began its ascent from deep in the trench of the east, every creature from the deep began to clear its path, for the true king of all hermits was rising from the deep. When the hermit crab got back to a place where the light from the white sky could penetrate once more, it saw a few crabs and began to ponder. And as it pondered, the crab's thought grew and shifted in size. How dreadful, thought the hermit. So it shifted its large body, slipped into its shell, and hid next to a large rock. After a long while, it felt a tap on its shell. A humble king crab stood before it, bowing its head and offering on two claws a great fish. The hermit's stomach rumbled, and it quickly snatched the fish from the king crab. Recalling it should likely be appreciative, the hermit gave the king crab 2 taps on the head, and that crab was henceforth known as King 2, the first disciple of the hermit emperor. As the hermit gained confidence, so too did its people. When it bolstered itself enough to finally emerge from its great slumber near the boulder, it was shocked by what it found. Rows and rows of crafted homes out of sand, stone, and even sticks all surrounded their new lord. It seemed that King 2 spread the word of the great hermit emperor, and with it came an influx of crabby friends just waiting for a grand leader to help against their dastardly lobster nemesis. Of course, the hermit itself had no true idea why they were there, but it was glad to find so many comrades like itself. It had never before had a community of crabs such as itself to speak and make merry with, so it lumbered around, tapping crabs upon the head to further change them into large, loyal subjects. After a long selection process, which crabs had the shiniest shells, the hermit selected a court of 10 crabs, one for each of its legs, to scuttle around and direct the erecting of grand palaces for each crustacean around, except the dangerous lobsters, of course. When its court began to do the vital work to make this burgeoning Crablantis the home it was meant to be, the hermit began to think back upon itself, pondering how exactly it got here. The crab thought about the death it should have fallen to. It thought of its newfound power, but most of all, it thought about how it used to love dancing around the sea floor. When its shell would catch the light and scatter it all around, there was nothing greater in this place. So, as it rose from the sand on its new throne, it spoke to every crab within that place, and with its great voice and a clicking of its claw, they began to dance. One day, the quaint little village began to boil and bubble with lobster trouble. Their cruel, elongated forms burst from the sand to great terror, their steel-plated shells crashing through the homes of the crabby residents. Hurriedly, King Two scuttled to the emperor and raised his claw, clicking it 3 times. As it did, the form of the hermit slunk from its throne. It looked around with its great eyes and realized what happened. Storming out of the castle, the hermit opened its pincer and closed it a single time, severing half of the army of lobsters in one fell swoop, the ocean's crown tossing the rough influence of a tidal wave into each movement. As it slogged through the crowds, it kept going after the army of lobsters, ever emerging from the surf, raising claws and snapping them with brutal crunch of lobsters. It is said that the fight continued for days until, of course, the great hermit's shell cracked. Upon this great evil, it staggered back and looked back upon its home. Seeing the ruin it caused, the hermit paused. In its rage, it had done nothing more than what those lobsters wanted it to. It had destroyed its home. As it hunkered down in the surf, it let out a small, sorrowful sigh. It couldn't go on like this. And even if it could, it just wanted to eat with its new community, not crush lobsters. And so the hermit raised its other claw. With the great force, it shouted out, calling to all crustaceans around the entire ocean. On that day, the great crustacean truce was called. Thus, the kingdom of Crablantis had risen from the sea, and all people there live in harmony on their great resort. You, too, may be lucky enough to go there someday. If you wish to enjoy the tropical delights of the crustaceans, you can go. Simply look for the kingdom by the small town of Remembrance under the rainbow. Wormhole Wonderland was created, written, and produced by Win Oates, with music by Dummis and Caleb Mazzota. Visit our website down below by Webmaster Callum, and visit our Discord. Thank you for listening to Wormhole Wonderland.